Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of the Cosmic Force. My name is Tyler Reganti, and tonight we discuss the 2015 Lando miniseries, something that is very near and dear to one of our co-hosts' heart, and we'll get to that in just a second. But before we do, let me go ahead and say hi to the rest of my team tonight, because It's been a while. It's been like 2 weeks, and then it feels like forever since we've seen each other. So Emma, how's it going over there?
Doing well, thank you. Yeah, really excited to do another roundtable tonight. By the way, Tyler, it's been the first time since I've seen you since your Lightning won the chip.
Wait,
Congratulations.
that happened? Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, as I've got my my official boat parade shirt, my official Stanley Cup champion hat. So yeah, things are good down here in Tampa Bay.
Congratulations. It feels
Thank
weird
you.
for a Boston team not to be doing so hot, but you know what? That's okay. Congratulations, you've earned it.
It was a lot of fun. My house is a big hockey house. So we were all awake at 11:30. Even my 5-year-old was up at 11:30 watching
So worth it.
that presentation. So let's move over to Caleb. Caleb, how are you doing tonight? You first off, I totally forgot that you had this on until just now. Look at this thing. Caleb is rocking a Lando cape tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and it is the best thing that I've seen.
It is hot off the presses. My wife literally put it on me like 10 minutes ago. Like she was pulling a college all-nighter on this one, and I could not be more proud. This is something else. I am going to like sleep in this tonight. I think it's like it's got
Yeah,
it's nice velvet, so like, you know, we'll change the color depending on how you're looking at it. It's got a really nice lining here. Like
I was gonna say, let's see the inside there.
Joanne's, like, you know, like we spent like 30 minutes in there trying to find like the best combination. So I was really happy with how this turned out. And yes, everyone needs a cape. It is amazing. So in case you couldn't tell, I am so excited to be here. I think this is the show I was looking forward to the moment we started talking about doing a Star Wars podcast. So I want this. I'm so excited here, guys.
Well, I'm excited that you're excited. At last, our producer, Jacob, how's it going over there? As you're still preparing for law school. It's not hasn't happened yet, right?
That is correct. Yeah, no, I don't start for another month now. Just add a month. But yeah, things are going good. My last day of work is Friday, and I am excited to be done. So put it with that.
Coworkers crying tears of joy or sadness.
Well, I found out this week that I'm not the only person quitting, so it's gonna be a fun time for all those left. So RIP, like my 2 coworkers that remain.
Yeah, that's got to be that's got to be tough. But hey, you're on to bigger and better things, and we're all happy for you. As soon as you do the move and everything and get settled, it's going to be exciting, I'm sure. But all right, so if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. Other than the fact that Caleb normally doesn't have that amazing cape on, we are a Star Wars podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/Utini every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. If you can't join us live, that's okay. All of our videos are available right here on the YouTube channel in its own special little playlist. And we are also available on all of your favorite podcast platforms on the internet. So whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever it is that you choose to listen to your podcast on, go ahead and find us. Leave us some ratings. We appreciate it. The fellow fans appreciate it. It makes it easier for them to find us, and we always love hearing from you guys. We are also part of the Utini Podcast Network of nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at utini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members with dozens of channels to choose from. The 2 most popular channels recently has been the High Republic and all of those related channels, and then the TV shows. Podcast was our channel was pretty popping today. Something about Loki, earlier today, got a lot of people talking. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, head on over to patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community events. So, normally I do the outline of the show, but since this is Caleb's night and Caleb is just looking, every time I look down and I see you in your cape, I just have to smile. I'm going to let you kind of do this part here, and kind of outline what we're talking about tonight, and kind of lead us off here.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about the Lando one shot. It's a 2015 run, kind of in the beginning when when Marvel was taking over all the series. So kind of a proving grounds of one of our great writers, Mr. Charles Soule himself. So it's a really fun little Ocean's 11 gone wrong sort of romp. So we're going to get a lot more into it, after the normal shows, after we do the poll lists and art of the week. So Jacob, how about you take away what came out this week, because we got some pretty good ones.
Yeah, so this is 2 comic books coming out this week. We got War of the Bounty Hunters #2, The Scoundrel's Ball, written by Charles, hey, look who it is, Charles Soule. Pencils by Luke Ross. The cover is by Steve McNiven. Colorist is Niraj Menon, and the letters from Travis Lanham. And then we also have Dr. Aphra #12, Party Tricks. The writer is Alyssa Wong. Pencils from Minkyu Jung. The cover is from Sarah Pacelli. Inker Victor Olazaba. Colorist Rochelle Rosenberg. And the letterer is Joe Caramanga. Before we get any further, well, obviously the links are down in the description if you want to buy this on Comixology. I'll give you a heads up. I personally, having read these, would read War of the Bounty Hunters first. I saw some people on Twitter actually saying the other way around, and I kind of disagree. They without spoiling anything, they very heavily overlap, and I think it's better to start with War of the Bounty Hunters first. It's kind of a Rising Storm, Race to Crash Point Tower situation, if you catch my drift. So yeah, good issues. We'll go with that. I personally,
I agree with you there. Like, I agree with that order. War of the Bounty Hunters first.
Same here.
And having read both of them, and I took Jacob's suggestion before I read them, and I couldn't really imagine. I think I'd be very confused if I read Dr. Aphra #12 first. But either way, I guess you can't really go wrong. But if you have a choice, probably pick War of the Bounty Hunters first.
I'll even go as far as to say, if you were like trying to budget yourself for this event, I think Afro #12 might be skippable.
I would agree with that.
I don't think that's a hot take.
No,
I don't think it's a hot take either. No,
I haven't read that one. So
they're both good, but there's a significant enough amount of overlap that you really don't miss much by not reading the Afro issue, especially if you're not someone that's reading Afro currently.
And as of now, what you do see in Aphra doesn't seem as important, especially to this arc. Right. Once we get back into Aphra's independent story, there might be some more significance, but no, I would totally agree with you, Jacob, that it's really, there's a lot of heavy overlap. More of the Bounty Hunters, just there's some better things in that issue. So yeah.
Let's head over to Art of the Week.
So my art, yes, we'll head over to Art of the Week, and my Art of the Week comes from this very miniseries. This is from issue #3 of the Lando miniseries from 2015. The penciler is Alex Maleev. And I just like this because it's very, you don't see this busy of a middle spread with so few words. Usually it's one big panel, usually it's an action scene, but to have 7 different scenes and have a whole action sequence play out with no words, I think it was really, really cool to see kind of the story being told in just pictures. So that was why I chose this as my Art of the Week this week. Emma, what do you have in store for us?
Yes, I have some more Star Wars adventures. This was from a story called Mind Your Manners. The art was by John Samarvia. And this was really okay. So the story itself was really, really fun. Basically, the premise had to do with Luke and Leia and R2 going on a diplomatic mission, but Leia sprains her ankle because Luke kind of crash landed a little bit. And so she can't do this diplomatic mission. So basically, Luke has to go and do these talks with these aliens. I don't remember their species name, that have a ton of rituals, and of course, he messes up big time. So now Leia's got to hobble over and go through this, like, in this art here, it's like a gem cavern type of thing, and these are resources that they want for the rebellion. And she's got to come in and save the day, even though she is injured. And I found this story to be really, really fun, and this art was really cool with just Leia in that classic New Hope outfit and overlooking this gem mine. It was really, really breathtaking, actually.
Would you believe that I read this exact issue today?
Shut up. Are you serious?
Yeah. No, I was
That's amazing.
like flipping through. I'm like, wait, that's Emma's art of the week. Apparently, it's the Sarkans. I had to look that up.
The
but-
Sarkans. Yes. That sounds familiar. Yeah. Yeah, really interesting Star Wars Adventures story. This, like, out of all the, I've been trying to read all of the Star Wars Adventures. I'm almost through. But this one has to be my favorite story so far. It was so much fun. And I love Leia, and the art was really cool too. I was going back and forth between a couple panels. So yeah, really solid story if you're looking for some more Star Wars adventures. Caleb, what is your art of the week?
This one comes from not Shadows of the Empire, but from the Boba Fett series from the 95 series. The art is by Cam Kennedy, so that's why it looks with the watercolors and the washed out look. It was like they had a kind of entire range of Boba Fett just doing a lot of stuff. The series is pretty good. I think they kind of missed out maybe a slight problem in that Boba Fett talks too much. Like like his
usually
quippy
a man of few words.
Yeah, and his quippy one-liners turn into like 2-sentence like ovations. I'm like, man, Boba Fett doesn't talk this much. So, but it's still really good. Like if you're looking for some more Cam Kennedy artwork, but you're turned off by the fact that there might be a naked Sith Lord in there, don't worry, no nudity in this one. So
wow, what a pitch for a comic book. No nudity in this one.
Exactly. So no, it was a lot of fun. If you have, I think it's actually coming out in an omnibus like towards the end of this year with like a bunch of like Boba Fett stuff.
Blood ties or whatever.
Blood ties are like, yeah, I think I saw on Wikipedia.
Might be November now, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's coming out at the end of this year, so it'll be a lot of our Boba Fett stuff that I haven't read, but I think they'll be including this one as well. What about you, Jacob? What have you been reading?
Yeah, so my art is from the Knights of the Old Republic, issue number 5, with pencils by Travis Foreman and colors by Michael Atiyeh. This is, I don't know, this was very striking. This is a big splash page, and showing each half is a different Jedi having like this cataclysmic vision. And one side it's just like a ship being shot out of the sky, this big battle, but the other side is a little bit more interesting because the Jedi having the vision is blind, so you're seeing her interpretation of something as she sees it, as like the Force allows her to see, even though her eyes don't work. So I thought it was a very interesting contrast. There's like another spread where it shows 2 other Jedi having a vision, but this one with the vision from the blind Jedi I thought was pretty striking.
That's a really cool concept itself. Yeah. Like that makes me want to read that.
I'll get into it, but it's good.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear more.
Yeah, next we got our community submission.
Oh yeah, and that was from Discord user Moonflyer, aka Dave. This one comes from the Solo adaptation. I think it was issue number 1. Cav showing him flying his ties during his time with the Empire. Something we didn't see in the movie itself, but the comic has a couple scenes about it. So that was kind of fun to see that. I know we kind of got a whole mini series like I forgot the term what it was called, but like a
Imperial Academy.
That was it. Yeah. So Cadet, Imperial Cadet. Yeah.
Yes.
So we saw that entire series play out, but it's still nice to see it. Some references there to see him actually in that TIE pod and zooming away. So thank you for that submission. That was pencils by Will Sliney and colors by Federico Blee. So hit us up on Discord. We'll might be featuring your artwork next week.
Yeah, that art is really cool. I love the use of purple there.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
what really
the color
stands out.
purple, and it's like I love when Star Wars is purple.
It's
even Mace
easy.
Windu.
Exactly, it's easy to make space
sometimes.
black, but when you get nebulas and star patterns and all like that, that's where it's fun.
Go read.
Speaking of Mace Windu, we are doing Shatterpoint Roundtable tomorrow night on Legends Look Back. So if you want more purple, come join us.
We'll see. I'll probably be there.
All right, yeah. for what we're reading this week, we're gonna condense it because we all kind of talked and other than the Lando comic and the High Republic comics and novels and War of the Bounty Hunters, we're pretty much all reading the same thing. But we did want to highlight one thing that Jacob's been reading because he's got a new addition to his collection, and Have you been? Are you ready to lift this thing?
Yeah, I did my stretches. I got my wrist braces on. So I blame fully. Not so much Jared actually. Normally I blame Jared, but I think this is more Scuba Joe in Discord. I got the Old Republic omnibus. This thing is a monster. I weighed it the other day, and it's around 7.5 to 8 pounds. And yeah, it's I think 1,134 pages of sweet
Wow.
Old Republic goodness. And yeah, I've read about 2 volumes of it so far. It's been a lot of fun. And I love it. I just need like a book stand to actually read it. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. It's really interesting because it's a Jedi focused story that focuses on a Jedi that isn't like the best of their class.
Isn't he like the worst?
Yes.
Like, is he like bad? Like, it's like I remember reading that, like, I guess it was like 8-10 years ago. I was like, wow, this is really interesting, because I love it when like Star Wars doesn't focus on Jedi. So when I was reading it and it's like, oh, another Jedi story. Oh wait, he sucks at this whole thing.
Yeah, it's like compared to the High Republic, which of course I love so much. It's like you have Vern, who's the best ever, and Reeth, who's the top of all of his classes, and Lula, who's also somehow the top of all of her classes. And it's like, well, where's like the mediocre Jedi? And it's apparently it's in this giant tome of a book. So I've been digging it so far. I'm excited to keep reading that. So I got the Dustin Weaver cover. I was like lazy because people were talking about it in Discord for like months, and I'm like, I might want to get that, even though it's all on Marvel Unlimited, so I don't need this, but it looks cool, so I'll maybe buy it. And then I just waited, and then I just walked into my comic shop when it came out and just picked up the one they had. So yeah, it works.
That's usually how it goes when you go into the comic shop. You buy things that you never even thought you were going to buy before you walked in those doors.
And that's also what happens when something's pretty and you don't need it. You buy it. It's just a fact of life.
And that's why you have how many Funkos?
Me?
Did you hit 100 yet? Or
technically yes, because of my pile of loot. I now have all
okay.
the Bad Batch Funkos in there. So like technically I'm a little over 100, but like in my possession currently I have 99. It's a problem.
I feel like I'm catching up to you, but when you say that your Bad Batch is already in your pile of loot, then I feel like, oh well, you're gonna get it before mine. So
Funko Force 99.
Yes.
Oh yes. That's
all right.
great.
We are going to take a quick merch break, and then when we come back, we are going to talk about Caleb's favorite miniseries of all time. So we'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. So again, we're going to be talking about probably one of my favorite series here, Lando 2015. This was written by Charles Soule, who we've touched on multiple times throughout this entire run of our podcast here. He's probably one of the better writers out there. He's pretty good, wouldn't you say, guys? He does his job well. Yeah, he's all right. I'm glad they kept him around. One thing that person I do wish they had kept around was the penciler Alex Maleev. He did some work on the Leia miniseries and did some variant covers, but I really like the art in this one, so I would love to see him come back and do another series. The cover artist was Leilani Francis Yu. Did a bunch of art for the Rebel Jail arc for the mainline series, and edited by Jordan White and Heather Anno. So a bunch of people with tons of titles under there. So they'll just have an all-star cast of Star Wars creators who would become all-stars in the Star Wars universe. Really, really good. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, anything written by Charles Soule, it's going to be good. So yeah, solid stuff all around. It's really cool to see some of his earlier work in Star Wars for sure.
Absolutely.
And
As I said,
I wanted to take
oh.
I wanted to note that Heather Antos, one of the assistant editors for this, is actually an editor for the High Republic Adventures comic that is out now.
Oh,
So
very cool.
she's been with Star Wars comics for a little while, and just it's nice to continue to champion those that are involved with the High Republic and then modern comics. So I wanted to point that out.
Actually, pretty
Nice.
sure I saw someone talking about her being like with the IDW side of things in Discord this week, which was like, oh, they're like, yeah, she's editing this now. I'm like, news to me. I was like, we try and keep track of everything, but like, yeah, editors and like, yeah, stuff like that like higher level staff is kind of. I mean, we love Tom in Discord, but that's kind of where I start to. It's harder for me to keep track of that.
There's a lot of behind the scenes work there, which is important, but it's harder to like. It's not exactly like we follow them on Twitter because they don't have a lot of big things to tweet. As I said, this was published between in the latter half of 2015, released on a trade paperback, and I think it was out on hardcover with what was it, Heroes for a New Hope, with both the Leia series and the Chewie series. So it's all really good stuff happening. I think the timeline wise is right after the Battle of Yavin 4 or right before.
Technically, Wookiee has it as 0 BBY.
Yeah,
so
well, I know Leia's obviously is after because she deals with Alderaan stuff, and I'm assuming Chewie I think is in the Rebellion, so I think his is also
it's
after
that
well.
one's off after as well because the medal is a plot point.
Oh, right. Yep.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So it's probably right in that same sort of time frame there. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for that background info. And I think I know what your rating is going to be. So I'm going to come to you last. But I want to go around the room and kind of have everybody's initial rating and super quick impressions. I'll go first. I had fun with this. This was, Soule writes a great story. It was enjoyable. So I'm going to give it a solid 8.5. Emma, what about you?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I had fun. The thing is, it's like I don't know what it was about this story. I had a little bit of a hard time getting started with it. It felt like it had maybe a little bit of a slower start. I don't know if it's because it was like typical Lando or something like that, but I did enjoy getting to learn more about Lobot and getting to see some more adventures, and the Emperor's ship was like really, really cool to see. And the Sith Lore stuff also was really cool. So I'm going to give this one an 8.
Nice. Okay. Jacob, what about you?
That is Caleb. This is me. Yeah. So I think plot wise is not I don't think it's the strongest story. I think the characters is where it really shines, and it does a very good job with its characters. How I care about Lobot, and I shouldn't care about Lobot.
Yeah.
So I think on that alone, the strength of the characters, I'm gonna give it probably an 8 as well.
All right. So now we come to Caleb, and I hope that our scores didn't insult you too much.
Oh no. Like one of my good friends, like after we were like, I didn't like it. I'm like, well, I guess we can't hang out. And no, I think I think I'm going to have to give this a 10. This is my favorite. This is what I want from every single Star Wars series. This is my first 10. I'm going to put it out there.
All right.
Nice.
All right.
We have a perfect 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very interested to hear your perception on this because, like I said, it's an interesting book. But why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the summary of issue 1, Caleb?
Absolutely. Issue number 1, Star Wars, Lando, 2015. So Lando and Lobot are in it bad with a local crime boss, Papa Tovin. In order to finally wipe away their debt, all they have to do is do a single, just simple job. They have to gather a bit of a crew so they can take the mission out. So they gather the 2 twin fighters, Pavlov and Aliskin, and their professor, the brains of the operation, Sava Korin. They assemble and execute their plan flawlessly. It goes great. They sneak into a blue dock, a space dock, and black dock, steal the Imperial pleasure yacht, and fly away scot-free.
Sounds like every Lando story, except
Well,
Something wrong.
the start of every Lando story, the start always goes great.
But wait, there's
Here's
more.
the thing: if you're Lando and something goes right, you got to be a little suspicious.
All right, so I'm assuming things don't go so well in issue 2, right, Emma?
This is true. This is true. There's major trouble on the horizon. So the ship they stole was, we find out, is called the Imperialis, and it's the personal vessel of Emperor Palpatine. And basically, Palpatine is throwing everything in his power against Lando and his band of thieves, because there's a lot of important artifacts in this ship, to say the least, and Palpatine does not want it lost. Like, there's 3 star destroyers that show up. Like, it's big and it's huge. So they evade these main threats, but they're unaware that a pair of Imperial guards lay in wait for the intruders, and they mortally wound Lobot. He's just stabs right through to the chest, and boy, his implants do not like that. So big a little bit of a cliffhanger going into issue 3 here. So Jacob, tell us what happens next.
Yeah, so it's not a good time for Lobot. It's not great to get stabbed straight through your shoulder chest area. So yeah, Lando rushes him to the ship's med bay to throw him into the back to tank before his cybernetics completely take over his mind. Because, well, yeah, I guess we haven't mentioned it. Lobot wasn't always like, you know,
Robot.
Spoke.
Yeah,
he
was a normal person.
Yeah.
Just with this little computer on his head. So they throw him in there to rehabilitate while he goes to take care of the guards, as the twin cat dudes were fighting that. And then they were managed to overcome them. The guards have been corrupted by the dark side. And when we enter the room they were guarded, we find many priceless Sith artifacts, including one you might recognize from some other comic books.
Yes, that was actually probably the moment that I was most hyped for. And that helmet, that artifact, is none other than the helmet of I'm going to butcher this. It's Momin, right?
Yeah, Darth Momin.
Darth
Morden.
Momin.
Darth
No,
Morden,
well,
yes.
yes.
Eric's dog.
So yes, while going through the Sith artifacts, one of the twins is influenced by the dark powers of Lord Momin and betrays the group, and causes Lando and the rest of his group to flee deeper into the ship. But what Lando doesn't realize is that in addition to the Imperial Star Destroyers that were after him in the earlier issues, the Emperor has also hired a bounty hunter named Chaneth Cha, flying in a very familiar ship for those of you who are big prequel trilogy fans. And that ship is finally caught up with the Imperialis, and she is trying to get herself onto the ship to execute Palpatine's directive, because she has been told to capture the ship at all costs. But if she can't capture the ship, then she needs to destroy it. So that is what her intentions are. And that leads to the epic conclusion in issue 5. And so Caleb, go ahead and take us home.
Exactly. Tramped up aboard a haunted ship, Chaneth Cha sets the self-destruct as Lando runs to get Lobot out of the medical bay, dodging and defeating the corrupted, now twin lightsaber-wielding cat people. Locked out the escape pods in a last desperate moment, Lobot allows his cybernetics to take over his body and soul, allowing him to actually open the door so that him and Lando can escape. As they run out of the escape pod, there's a almost tragic message, a recording played by now robot Lobot, as Lando and him escape out into the wild space with honestly nothing to show for this except a massive loss.
Yeah, this last scene reminded me a lot. Spoilers for Civil War, like a 15-year-old comic book, is at the very end, Captain America dies, and like Tony Stark is like left with like having to like mourn over his friend over a fight that like in the end didn't amount to anything. So I thought this was very similar, where like Lobot's still alive, but like the person Lobot is kind of gone for this
Mhm.
this moment.
Yeah, and this is the Lobot that we eventually get introduced to in Empire Strikes Back, and the mute cyborg, sort of being that we see. So all right. That was the plot there. Caleb, I think you wanted to get into some character talk here, right?
Yeah, let's kind of dig into some of these characters here. I got a couple of bullet points. So let's obviously start with the title character, Lando himself. Normally, heroes have a character growth and arc here. And, while this is Lando's story, it's not like we saw too much, growth, because it's hard to set up like huge arcs for a character that have already been established in the movies. How do you see Lando from the beginning versus the end? Do you think he's seen a lot of change here in the last bit, or what?
I don't think he really changes. I think we see why he changes later. I think this is setting up for his growth from the Baron Administrator of Cloud City to where he becomes the general of the rebellion. I don't. He's just starting to deal with the consequences of his actions when the arc ends. So I don't think he really has the chance to grow. He's still in it for the job for most of it. And yeah, he like shifts his priorities to help his friends and try and get out of there alive. But I think he's still Lando for the most part. I don't think he's really experienced that change yet.
You took the words right out of my mouth. At the end of this comic, I don't think there's any change, but I like to imagine that the way he changes in Return of the Jedi is because of this message. And I like to, and it seems pretty evident, but I'd also like to think that his actions in Star Wars, the main title 2020, are a direct callback to this conversation, and this is the conversation that is driving him and his actions in 2020. So as I close book 5, is he changed? I don't think so. But does this start him down the path? I like to feel like that's the start of his journey to change.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited.
Emma, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball into this whole discussion here. I think we see in the first few pages, I think we see some change. And I'm going to say this because I would have expected Lando to just steal that artifact from his imperial governor's room, to steal it without telling her that he was going to steal it. I would have expected him to just sneak it out and not say anything. So to me, it's like, okay, we're already starting with a little bit of growth, and part of me wonders where that came from. I think we see a much more compassionate Lando in this, with his relationship with Lobot, and his care for Lobot that we hadn't really seen before. I mean, we see it much more now in the Star Wars 2020 run, but I think we do sort of get a hint that something is about to change, but we just don't have enough story in this time frame to see a big change.
Exactly. And as I said at the beginning, it's kind of hard to set up big character moments and big character changes for pre-established characters, but it is nice to see these seeds after the fact thrown into these characters. So we can't have him become a different person, but we can see and give him opportunities for him to think that maybe he should be a different person. And we see a lot of that in the Star Wars 2015 mainline series with Luke and Han and Leia, and their character growth over the time period. But it's always really nice when you get something new there.
I see that. I don't know why I didn't realize this. So the Star Wars 2020 mainline is also written by Charles Soule. So when I sat there and said, I feel like there's a direct callback between the end of this book and 2020, well,
there is.
There probably is, if you've got the same writer.
No, I'm definitely excited to see where he takes it after War of the Bounty Hunters, because I don't think we're really going to see the Lobot story progress in that. But to see if we can get we got teases in Operation Starlight of, well, maybe we can still rescue Lobot, and maybe Lobot has a future. So I want to. Hopefully that goes somewhere. I'm excited. But yeah, it's great to see Charles Soule have that opportunity to explore these characters a little bit more.
Exactly. One of the best things about comics is their long form storytelling, so we can get payoff to like these story beats 6 years later, and
Right.
that's always exciting. Another kind of point I wrote down here about Lando is that, when you're reading the series, like in the middle part, he's just constantly butting heads with Sava Korin, the Ugnaught professor, about how she sees her nature all the time, and because she literally lost an eye because of one of Lando's previous schemes off screen. So, like, you know, she's constantly saying, well, why haven't you betrayed us yet? Just cut and run. That's what Lando does. And Lando's like, I've never done that. So what do you think? Who has a better, this is like a weird, like super meta question, but who has a really better idea of who Lando is? Lando himself or the people that he has worked with and interacted with?
I think the people he's worked with for sure. Like,
Yeah.
like for some, it's interesting that you bring up Sava Korin because I kind of wonder, like, he's friends with a lot of Ugnaughts, right? Or,
Mhm. Yeah.
or they work for him on Cloud City. I wonder what that's all about. Like, I'd love to know more about like why he seems to have a lot of Ugnaught counterparts. But to answer your question, like I think definitely, the people that work for him definitely see his true side, and Lando I think sees himself with rose-colored glasses for sure.
Exactly. And maybe finally being confronted with someone who's like, no, Lando, you're the absolute worst. I'm only doing this because of the money. And I know you're going to betray me eventually. Maybe that also sets up some things for his like change down the line of like, wait, people do think I'm an actual scumbag, not just some, rich, looking scoundrel. Like maybe that helps make him realize that his rose-colored version of himself isn't quite what he's seen himself as.
Yeah, and I think you see a lot of characters reinforcing this idea. Like you have Chaneth, who like she's like, I won't help you, but Lobot's here, so I will help him.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just kind of a casual. You are being helped indirectly because of Lobot. And then at the very end with Lobot in the escape pod with him, Lobot's like, through the recordings, like I knew what was gonna happen. Like, unfortunately, like we couldn't get out of the game, and you kept going in, and you need to quit because I know you, and you're gonna get someone hurt. That's beyond me.
And I wonder, as you guys are talking, I was thinking about this, is that, do you think that he knows, maybe he doesn't see himself with rose-colored glasses, but by constantly going job to job, by constantly being on the move, it doesn't give him the time to sit and reflect about all the truth that everybody else says about him, and that how he does consistently put his friends in danger and people. He always seems to escape just fine, but there's a path of destruction behind him. And I'm wondering if, that's why he's constantly moving from job to job. He's constantly looking, rather than staying and fighting, he flees because, well, that's the easier thing to do, and I can just move on to somebody else who knows me because I've got the charm. I can somebody who doesn't know me, I can charm them out of anything. So that's something that I think is, if this was a novel, I could see that sort of character development be used for Lando.
Absolutely. So speaking of Lobot, Emma, do you have any thoughts about him? Any discussion questions for the class?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to open up this character section by starting with something from Mike in the chat, who wrote, "Lobot is to Soul as Jackson is to Kevin," and this is
Wow.
just
Yeah.
so true. It's so true because we have Lobot, and he wrote Lobot in this series, Lando, and then we see a lot of Lobot in Star Wars 2020. So I just thought that was really interesting to point out for sure.
For a character who does all of like touching his smartwatch during the original film. That's it. He touches his smartwatch and that's it.
Exactly. Sometimes that's all you need to create like a massive fan of someone, You just gotta look cool and touch your smartwatch. But yeah, so Lando, sorry, I keep saying Lando. It's Lobot. There's a lot of L characters. Lobot has the most growth of anyone in this story for sure. So how do you guys feel about him now after maybe after reading some of the Star Wars 2020 and then looking back at this and seeing how Lando cares for him and Lobot is really one of the most selfless people I think we've ever seen in Star Wars storytelling, perhaps. What do you guys think?
I want a story because clearly at the beginning of this is not their first heist mission.
Mm.
I want to see that story, but I want to see it from Lobot's perspective.
Oh,
I want to
yeah.
know what their history is, and I want to see where their relationship started, how the relationship got to this point. But I want to see it with Lobot as the driving character in that story.
So tweet at Charles Soule that we want a Lobot miniseries.
Don't
There
do
you go.
that. You don't. Yeah, like real talk. You're not supposed to tweet creators about like things you want to see because it
Exactly.
can actively like discourage them and make them not able to do that thing.
So
But
don't
Right, so
Twitter
we'll
bomb
just
any author.
tweet it in
That's
your
not
brain.
cool.
yeah,
That's not cool.
You can scream at us in Discord about how much you want it, and we'll commiserate
Use the
with you.
Force. Use the Force, and send it to Soul via the Force. That way, there's no paper trail that any legal team can say, "Oh, this wasn't your idea."
Yeah, no, Lobot for me went from a character that, just touched a smartwatch, his head lit up at one point, and his eyes open, and that's like, that's Lobot. Lobot didn't matter. Like I had no negative or positive feelings. I had no feelings at all towards Lobot, and that come out of this story, like, feeling the tragedy of Lobot. Like who has a more tragic backstory, Anakin Skywalker or Lobot? I don't know. Like, come on. Like Anakin was all about selfishness, and yes, he came from a troubled background and wasn't given the support he needed. But Lobot, did everything for his friend, and in the end paid the price for it. So,
His brother, like they call each
you were
other
like
brother all the time.
a brother to me, Lobot.
And what's worse is being betrayed by someone out of villainy, like Anakin betrayed the Jedi Order out of an act of villainy. But I'm not saying Lando betrayed Lobot, but Lando was the one who got him into that situation.
When Lobot said it was a bad idea.
Yeah, Lando he put his friend into that situation unaware that aware that it was going to be dangerous, and Lobot was the one who paid the price.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I definitely feel heartbroken for Lobot throughout so many of these stories, and I never thought, when I was little watching Empire Strikes Back, I never thought I'd care for that dude with the weird thing on his head. But here we are. Here we are, and we all care about him.
Mm-hmm.
So another question I have for you guys about Lobot is, he seems to be very trusting of Lando and kind of, he sticks with him even though things with Lando they don't always end up great, and Lobot acknowledges that, and Lando always has an excuse. So do you think that Lobot's faith in Lando is misplaced at all? Tyler, I want to start with you.
So when I saw this question, I put some thought into this. To me, Lobot is the parent of a troubled child. And says, I know there's good in you. I know that you're better than you think you are. But you've got to do it. You've got to do, and that's what I feel his whole message is at the end of this book is, be who I see you to be. Live up to the potential that I have in you. And so do I think it's misplaced? No. But that's what makes the story so tragic is that I think Lando, like we said, eventually does make a turn for the better. And I think that it's Lobot is the reason for that. But unfortunately, Lobot isn't around to see it, or maybe he is. Maybe we eventually we'll see him, return. But that's how I saw this as, after I got done with it and I saw that question, I kind of thought about it was I wouldn't say it's misplaced. It's tragic that he saw his potential before Lando did and wasn't able to see it to fruition.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put that, like a parent of a troubled child. That's really interesting to look at it that way, because certainly it feels like they have a dynamic that's not quite friends. It feels like something more hierarchical in a way. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I think that you're getting really close to what that relationship might look like if we were to put it in Earth terms. Jacob, what do you think on this?
Yeah, I think going to that relationship, it's definitely saying like kind of like Tyler was saying, it's definitely more familial where it's not your friend where you pretty much mostly like each other for the most part. You're not fighting because you have that choice to be with each other. You can choose not to. Where family, for most part, you're stuck with them and you kind of make the most of it. You go back and forth. Sometimes you hate each other. Sometimes you love each other. But I think that bond is often the strongest part of that. So I think that's similar with Lando and Lobot, where Lobot disagrees with him a lot. Lobot might not see the same way as Lando, and might not be as gung ho for all the jobs they're doing. He just wants to settle his debt and be done. But he cares for Lando at a deeper level, and that's why he keeps coming back and why he keeps trying to get him on the straight and narrow.
Exactly. Yeah, I think Lando, like, I don't think Lobot necessarily has misplaced his trust in Lando, because we see throughout that series that, like, like Lando's priorities are, it's like himself, like it's Lando, then it's like Lobot just behind him. Like Lobot is like the person he cares about more than anyone else in this entire heist. Like the moment he gets wounded, he drops everything and gets him to the med bay. Like, it's, when after Lobot loses his mind to cybernetics and they're into escape pod, like, as Lobot says in his like thing, this triggered when the moment I hear you say the word cure. And I figured that didn't take long, and it didn't. It took him like 2 speech bubbles for him to say, I'm going to help you, Lobot. I'm going to do everything in my power. And like, so Lobot knows that Lando cares about him and will drop everything for him. And even if Lando is a bag of like mess, like everywhere he goes trouble follows, he still knows that Lobot knows that he's number one in Lando's like calculation, so he knows Lando will drop everything for him. So I don't think it's misplaced. It just, Lando's a troublemaker.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. Like, I think it's good that Lobot has faith in him, but Lando just gets everybody into trouble. It's just kind of what he does. It's his, it's almost like Lando's the one that trusts people too much, has a little bit too much faith in others. If we look at it that way. But yeah, so that's all for Lobot in this character section. Tyler, I believe you're gonna lead us through talking about the heist crew.
Yeah, so that's, we lumped the rest of the heist crew kind of together, and I kind of wanted to go around the room and say, ask what was your favorite of the extended party here? Was it Sava, Corin? Was it, we can even throw in Shaneth Cha, because by the end you could say that she kind of joins the crew.
Absolutely.
So I want to go to Jacob first, and I want to ask you who was your favorite of the extended party?
Yeah, so I'm glad you blessed the selection of Chanth Cha, because I was going to say it anyways, because I mean she's obviously the best character here.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
She's by far the most interesting. Like it's definitely like S tier Chanth Cha, A tier Sava, and then like D tier the twins. Like they're cool, but they're just here to like be like cats that fight things.
They're the muscle.
Yeah, they're the muscle. So yeah, definitely Chanth Cha is the most interesting character out of the bunch.
So do you rate the twins that low because they're only good for one thing, or because they end up turning on the rest of the crew?
You can turn on people, that's fine. That can be a cool, fun story bit, but they're just not they're nowhere near as interesting. Partially because they don't talk basically the entire story except for like twice.
The end.
Yeah, they're like, oh wait, we're gonna kill you so you can hear us speak now. It's like, okay, well.
If you
All
insist.
right, Emma, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm gonna disagree with Jacob here a little bit. I did like seeing Chaneth Cha, a female sort of adversary there. I do like that. We love that. But I have to say, I was far more interested in Sava Corin. Not at first, but once we sort of moved along and she was like, am I using the correct
Yeah,
pronoun?
it's a she.
She, okay. She she was talking about what she studied, and before uh, the beginning of the Empire, she studied like Jedi and Sith lore, and then when the Empire took hold, she was no longer allowed to study that because it was frowned upon. And I found that to be so interesting because she's basically like this repository of knowledge, and there's probably not that many more beings in the galaxy that know that much about the Jedi or Sith, because many of them were killed off probably in Order 66, the Jedi themselves. So I thought it was very interesting to have this character with a lot of knowledge about the Sith. And honestly, it just goes to show that the Empire really controlled many facets of people's lives, including what they can study and talk about and what's frowned upon and what's not. They had just an insane amount of control, and this definitely shows it.
Absolutely. Plus, I really liked having her dynamic with Lando, like the history there, and like constantly stepping on Lando's foot, like, yeah, no, you're a bad person, Lando. Like, I don't really trust you, and I don't like you. And like the dialogue they constantly have, it was really nice to have that kind of foil to Lando there.
And
Yeah,
especially
she won't let him get away
when-
with anything.
right, and yet with all that hatred, when Shannon first catches her, she's like, I'm alone. Like rather than at the same time, she had every leading up to that point, you would have every reason to believe she's like, I'm not the leader. That guy over there in the cape, he's the one you want. But she doesn't. Like, and so that's I'm also on team Savacoran, because she's a fascinating character. It's just like Emma, like you said, the fact that she was a studied Jedi artifacts, that is really fascinating to me. And if I'm somebody in Lando's shoes who's looking for scores and looking to make a quick buck, I mean, having somebody like that in your corner in a positive way, I mean, you could definitely have her. I mean, I don't know what is available from a research perspective anymore, but I could see that being a very profitable relationship if she's able to find some artifacts for you and find those sellers of those artifacts, like she was saying. So yeah, I'm also on Team Sava. Caleb, were you saying you were also Team Sava?
Actually, I think I'm on Team Jacob with Team Chanis Chop. I think like one thing that was like, spoiler warning, she hasn't technically died yet, so she's still out there. I'm real excited to see if she comes back. I just was looking on Wikipedia there, and looks like she was like mentioned in a couple of like the most recent Vader comics about like bounty hunters. So
I'll get there with Easter egg talk. But yeah.
So
nice.
Keep that in mind. So we probably haven't seen the last of her. So I think it was nice to see like a third party come in and just wonder like, okay, how many people does the Emperor have on speed dial, like, hey, drop everything and just come here and do my dirty work for me.
Just flipping through his bounty hunter Rolodex, as you do.
Exactly. So we've had a good talk about like the characters, but characters are nothing without the action. So let's talk about some like moments here. I put out some lists here. So let's start with like non-Lando moments, like things that might have been around Lando, but characters like doing cool things. So do you guys have any like specifics of like, as you're reading plot, that's a fun moment, that's a good moment there? Because I thought this series was just chock full of them.
Yeah, so definitely the first one that comes to mind is when Chaneth is waiting for the ship from Palpatine to arrive, and then, we sort of pan over and we see it's a scimitar, and the droid's name is 066. And like, that to me, it just made me feel really giddy as someone who loves that lore stuff.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, I just like the whole interaction of her flying the ship in and communicating with the droid. It reminded me a lot of the 000 and Afro relationship, where it's like, I destroyed you. You're just a floating head, so you can physically like help me with the ship, and I put a bomb in your neck. If you ever try and do anything, I'll blow you up. It's like I thought that was a very fun dynamic of, shut up, just let me drive the ship.
Yeah, that was one of the moments that caught me too. I also I enjoyed it, reminiscent of sort of Empire Strikes Back. I enjoyed the captain suggesting the career change to his lieutenant of well, I'm not getting out of this, but for you, I hear I hear the rebellion's looking for help. That was a little moment of levity for me that I kind of chuckled.
Like, not to get too dark here, but it seems like there's almost a trope with like Imperial, like, pilots and captains after taking the easy way out after they've really badly messed up. Like, that seems like a career path a lot of them take, and it's just like, you know what? How about you entire bridge crew just like give up? You're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to be dead by association. So just take a hike, man.
Yeah,
Just
I mean, it's like,
get out of here.
Is it Dark Visions 2 where the Star Destroyer captain is like chasing this ship through like a space slug? It's like you definitely see the consequences for failure in the Empire are so astronomically high that people are willing to do anything to not have to face those consequences.
There was a moment early in the book that I was very intrigued by, because then this is I think in book 1 where it's called, no, I actually had to have been issue 2, because we didn't know it was Palpatine's ship until issue 2. It was originally called Palpatine's pleasure boat, or pleasure yacht, and I was very I had questions about
just cruising the ship, boys.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions about the nature of that. Now, as we see, it had much more. It was more of a security ship, but I remember reading that. I remember reading it's Palpatine's pleasure yacht, and I was like, huh. I got a lot of images. I got a lot of questions and a lot of storylines going in my head.
Flashbacks to Shadows of the Empire or Dark Empire.
No,
yeah,
we're not going there.
it was an interesting choice of words for that character that just kind of caught me off guard. Because it's not a word that it's not a relationship that I put together, Palpatine and pleasure yacht. So that was, I just wanted to throw that out there as something that kind of caught me off guard.
There must be something with like antagonists and pleasure yachts, because we've got Dryden Voss with his pleasure yacht in Solo. Jabba the Hutt probably has a pleasure yacht. He strikes me as a dude
like
that has
I think the sand
100%.
skiff was like the sand yacht.
It's his pleasure skiff,
Yeah.
Well, Dryden Voss's ship is classified as a yacht as well, isn't it?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Caleb, did you say what your favorite moment was?
I think there's a lot of really good ones. I think on like the humor side, it's definitely Kenneth Tarl. Like we see her in the opening gambit, like, taking out a crime lord and flying away. And then Larry said, oh, well, when this client calls, you have to drop everything. As he just drops the target, 1,000 meters above sea level. That's a great, aha, one-liners. I appreciate that.
Right.
It was very much a Vader, like, don't choke on your aspirations type of thing. Yeah.
On the flip side of that, like Lobot's final message, like the pre-recorded, like, okay, like Lando, don't beat yourself up about this. I got myself into this, so like don't stress about it. Like that was just like the thing that tied the whole series together, is like Lobot being smart enough to know that how this is going to end. And that was a really like great moment of like to end that sort of thing on a disharmonious sort of moment.
That definitely, without that moment, I probably score this at least another full point lower, because it's that meaningful of a moment, and I think it's taken this long, for us to see Lando and other things, especially in 2020, for this to really resonate. I've had these comics since they came out, but this is just like my other endless table of novels. This was on my I hadn't read list, so I've owned this, and I own the Leia comics, and I hadn't read them, so it was a really nice way to end on it, and I'm really glad I was able to, as weird as it sounds, not read it until now and know that there's a payoff in the main line.
like that moment of like you were talking about when you saw the Darth Moment's like mask, that wasn't something that came out until like 2 years later. So when people first read, they're like, huh, Sith artifact, cool. But like now that you've had the extra contents that were added on over the years, this becomes better and better.
100% agree. Yeah, it's really nice to see. Are they Easter eggs because they were there before these books, or I don't know how we classify that.
Well,
but
I put
is
it as an
nice
Easter egg, so yes.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay. Well, then there we go. To see the Easter eggs, it's a lot of fun. Absolutely.
All right, so let's move into we talked about best non-Lando moments. Let's talk about the best moments for our titular character, Lando. Tyler, do you want to start us off?
So for me, his giddiness, like there are a couple of like classic Lando moments. I really think, Emma, I know you said at the top of the show that you thought there was some character growth with the way that he handled charming the governor to get the art piece. I look at that as classic Lando, like not in the moment, but him going back and I don't want to say bragging because that puts a negative connotation to it, but the way that he was talking about it to Lobot, that like, oh, that's Lando. Like that feels like a Lando moment of like, he's so convincing in the moment. And then afterwards he's like, oh yeah, that's whether or not that was his plan all along. I'm still to this day, I don't know. And I don't even think Lando would know. But that felt like a signature Lando moment, and realizing that he's worth 3 Star Destroyers is also another, like, he's kind of a little giddy about it at the same time of trying to get out of it. Those are the moments of his character that I enjoy, because he's got a lot of other ways to mess up. So those are 2 of my more favorite moments.
Yeah, I have to say, like, the moment when he escaped the 3 Star Destroyers by like crisscrossing their tractor beams so that the 2 Star Destroyers would like hit each other. That was like, it was so clever. And honestly, it reminded me of that part in Solo when Han was like, I'm about to like do this trick that my friend showed me, but my friend didn't make it, but I can do it, So
and his
yeah, I really
reaction was
like that.
oh yeah, I've done that plenty of times. Like that's,
Yeah, in my head,
In the
he sort of
simulation.
throws that qualifier and yeah,
And
that was a great part.
And it was also better because like we're cutting to like the Star Destroyer cruise, and like the captain was like 1,000,000 credits to the ship that brings it in. So of course, like the Empire's greatest fault is everyone is actually working out for themselves and not working together.
Right.
So if it had just been one person using the tractor beams, like they would have been stuck, they would have been screwed. But because everyone was crossing their streams and trying to get the literal prize in there, like it all wound up being terrible for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like that whole sequence reminded me of it felt like something that would be in the Rebels TV show. Like,
totally.
just something creative like that, just trying to find a way to get out of it. And of course, like the Star Destroyer is kind of like one of them slicing the bridge and the sort of that top part off of the other one. It was so Rogue One. Like that whole sequence brought up so many images to my mind. So yeah, I think that's my favorite Lando moment.
I think my personal favorite one, and this is going to take a little bit of explanation to set up, is, during the entire like first several, like the entire series, Lando's like, oh, blasters. I guess I'll hold this so I can look cool, or I guess it's better to have a gun and not need it. I'm not a blaster guy. But when I was first reading this years ago, I was thinking, well, I remember in Lego Star Wars 2, that there was actually, if you played the game, there's actually multiple tiers of blaster characters. Like some people could just shoot their gun, but some people, if they timed it right, could dodge bullets, and some people had a dash like shoot. But there are 2 characters that could had a special like double jump, triple shot. One was Han Solo, who was one of the best blaster characters in the game, and the other one was Lando Calrissian. I was like, wait a second, Lando's good at guns. What is he talking about? Is he? He isn't. And then at the very end, when he has that show off of like, like, I guess give me a chance to shoot this gun here, man. Come on, like, give me a blam blam, and just like that ultimate. That's the Lando moment. That was my favorite moment of the series, of like, just like Lando doing the super long con of like, lying to literally everyone that he has a hidden talent that no one knows, and he's the ultimate ace in the hole. like my favorite.
That is a deep cut, and I appreciate that you talking about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that definitely was going to be mine as well. Just like to piggyback off that a little bit. He goes on for so long talking about how he doesn't like blasters, doesn't care for it. And I remember it was like in one of the, I think it was Aftermath Life Debt, one of the interludes in there. He was like trying to like recapture Cloud City with a slug thrower, which is like a conventional like real world pistol.
I remember that.
And
yeah.
he's like talking about how he's gonna like save it for Ben Solo when he grows up. And I was like, I thought that was a cool moment. So absolutely not related to the story whatsoever, but hey, it's Lando, so it counts, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, in Solo, you guys remember like his gun was beautiful. It was like silver, or I guess chromium, and his enemies probably think, oh, that's just for show. That's like Lando's
Right.
fancy, gun. It's just for beauty or whatever. But if he needs it, damn, he can shoot.
Exactly.
All right, so let's just round it down with a couple of miscellaneous questions here. So now that Lando and Lobot are in the 2020 Star Wars mainline comic, looking back or forward, how it depends on how you look at it, does that make this story more meaningful to you? I'll start with Tyler.
Yeah, I mentioned it a little while ago. I get much more out of this knowing that the mainline 2020 series is out there and that they're a main feature of that. I don't think I would have liked this as much if I had read this when I bought these books in 2015. So seeing that in 2015 and in 2020 and seeing Lando's passion and Lando's drive to do right by Lobot, I think it makes this all so much better than a time when that comic wasn't around.
I definitely appreciate the fact we're getting more, and don't get me wrong, I'm really excited to see if we get payoff from this, but I think that it is able to stand on its own. I don't think it's a great story regardless of the existence of the 2020 run. I want to see where it goes. I hope we get some follow up on it, but I think the story, like I read it, I think the first time I read it was like 2017 or 2018 or 2018 probably. So like this is before that run existed, and I think it was a perfectly satisfying story. And I didn't feel like it needed to go anywhere else just because I knew what happens with Lobot and I knew what happens with Lando in the movies.
Yeah. Caleb, any thoughts?
No, pretty much all the same. Like, well, I read it years ago, but as I go back in and I'm now reading more things, like it is exciting to see how much more relevant that, Charles Soule is going back to some of his earlier work and not necessarily redoing things, but applying things from that. And it makes me excited for what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think, I did read this before the 2020 mainline. Reading it again now, I think, I kind of enjoyed seeing that Lando and Lobot dynamic in an earlier phase of their friendship, I guess you could say. And I think either way, it's still a very meaningful and impactful relationship in those scenes that we see. So, all right, last question before Easter eggs for you guys. And here we go. So who would be your dream heist team? And so for time, I'm going to limit this to, you can pick 2 Star Wars characters. And does anybody want to volunteer to go first before I call out someone?
Yeah. Okay. So first is, I feel like a solid pick, an all around great character is Echo. Not only is he like a great fighter and has like all that military tactics in his head, he's got the scomp. He can like go into any computer, like unlock doors and stuff. Like he's handy. He's like a multi tool of a clone man. So he's definitely my number 1 pick. And then I was thinking of some few in my head. I was thinking a bounty hunter because you need the fighter before. Only gonna go 2. I'm actually I think Echo's got that locked down as well. I'm gonna go a pilot. We need a getaway pilot, and I think I'm gonna pick Wedge Antilles. So I think
Ooh, good pick.
a Wedge Echo, and I think the two of them can get along. I mean, they're not.
Yeah.
Neither of them are evil, so I think that plays well. So Wedge and Echo and myself, of course, are gonna be the dream heist team.
That's a good one.
That is a good.
I'll go next. So I was thinking about this from a couple different ways, and I was actually glad you put the 2-character limit. I'm gonna go with the since this is a heist, we need somebody to be able to break in and get me anywhere I need to go. So it has to be a droid, but you need a droid with attitude, and you need a droid who's willing to.
Oh no, I think you're gonna pick who
who's willing to kind of tell you how stupid you're being, but at the same time know that know that you're going to get it done anyway. So I got to go with Chopper.
Yeah.
And
good. Okay.
Good.
I got to go with Chopper as my sidekick. And then I agree with you, Jacob, that you need a pilot, but you also need some muscle. You need somebody who's going to act as kind of both of those. And so Chewie would also be in my crew because he's gonna. I know that he's gonna be loyal to me. I know that he's got a great shot, and when I need him to get in the pilot seat, I can trust him to get us out of almost any mess because he's a better pilot than Han Solo. Let's just call a spade a spade. So Chopper and Chewie are my.
Those are great picks.
Are my crew.
Great pick. So okay, I was really worried that you were gonna pick one of my characters because I also want a really sassy droid on my team. And this he sort of doubles as my pilot, as well as a little bit of muscle and a little bit of the brains. That's K2SO. I think he'd be like he can go undercover. He can fly. He can also punch people. He can throw grenades. Like he's very versatile. And then, so that was like a no-brainer pick for me. My second pick, on the other hand, I kind of have a hard time with, but I can't get away from picking Kira. And the reason is that you don't really suspect that she's going to come in and steal all your treasures, right? She's very unassuming and could sort of, she's a good actor. So I think she'd be very versatile on my team. So it's going to be myself, Kira, and K2SO, and we're going to take over the huts for the crime lords.
Okay. Well, that leaves me to I can't have had two options. One of them would be the classic team of like R2-D2 and C-3PO because they're droids and no one suspects them. But I think my actual pick is going to be Boba Fett. Like he's not someone you think of as a heist sort of person, but at the same time, when has he ever failed or not done a job?
Valid point.
Like, you could pick someone like Hondo or Han Solo, but you know that they always mess it up in the end. But that's not something Boba Fett does. He always gets his man. So I think it'd be Boba Fett. And this is going to be a weird pick, but I think, going off of Emma's like, morally ambiguous, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Oh, interesting.
Like he's not above cheating a random street merchant out of his goods. He
did you just call Anakin a good?
He was to Watto.
And that's our show.
Oh my god.
But like legitimately, he Watto shows him tries to get him to roll off, and he totally uses the Force to get what he wants out of Watto. It's like the first thing he did is try to mind wipe him, like, no, you'll take my credits. Like, come on, man, just give me.
We'll be fine.
Exactly. So Qui-Gon Jinn has that moral ambiguity there, and he'll get whatever to get what he needs done. So if you make a good enough cause, like it'll help be good for the Republic in the long run. Qui-Gon Jinn would steal anything.
That's kind of a point there.
And it'd be fun to see him and Boba Fett together. That'd be just like a weird dynamic.
That would be such a weird dynamic. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
When you first said Qui-Gon, I was like, where is he going with this? But now I kind of understand.
I was kind of also thinking like a somewhat more roguish Jedi, and I think Rael Aberros would be another good pick.
Oh yeah,
that's what I was thinking too. If you're gonna go with the Force user, but I think Caleb's convinced me that Qui-Gon is a better pick.
Him or Quinlan Vos.
Oh yeah, Quinlan Vos is another good one.
Yeah, his whatever the ability is where you can touch things and see the history of it. That would be pretty helpful for stealing artifacts and stuff.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you could see if it's valuable or not, or you guys have got me thinking now. Like Asajj Ventress would be like the best person to have on your heist team. Oh man, we could go on about our
Next
our
week,
picks
the
all
heist
night.
draft.
Yes, I was just about to say that. We should do like a plan your own heist in a draft.
Yeah.
But maybe for a future episode, maybe if you guys want that might be fun. But for now, we have Jacob's famous Easter eggs. Jacob, hit us with those Easter eggs.
All right, stretching out here. Okay, we got a good amount this week. So issue number 1 starts on Castle, where he's stealing the artifact from that moth, and that's a world mentioned in Legends in the Old Republic comic series, which again, right here, and it is the homeworld of the Gossam species. Next, Lando mentions that not everyone likes knowing the odds. Obviously, a reference to, I don't know, like the billion times we hear it in the series. The mob boss Torin appears both in Dr. Aphra and the Poe Dameron comic series. Poe Dameron. His little fairies are called Jimpy, which are first referred to by name in High Republic issue number 1. That's the little fairy species that Keeve saves.
Totally forgot about that
during her trials. Then Corin Purs was a Sava, similar to a professor at the University of Barleth, which is where Dr. Aphra studied. The Imperialis, which is Emperor Palpatine's ship, has a larger role to play in the universe. After it's destroyed, the remains are sent to the scrap moon of Quanshi, which was recently seen in High Republic Adventures. That's the scrap moon that the Nihil are on for a little bit. And then also in the Aftermath trilogy, Sloane uses the data from the ship to find the origin of Gallius Rax. In addition, each of the Emperor's observatories has a copy of the Imperialis, and Sloane uses one on Jakku to escape to the unknown regions with the beginning of the First Order.
Yeah, I thought it sounded familiar for some reason.
Yeah.
It's been forever since I've read those books.
Yep. And then in the let's see, Chanth Cha also appears in Soule's Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith issue number 11. Her and her parents were the ones that try to like assassinate Darth Vader. They have like these energy bubbles that they're in.
Oh, I totally I remember that, but I didn't realize that was her that she grew up to.
Yeah. So, and then she also appears in Kieran Gillen's Darth Vader 2015 number 16. Vader puts out a bounty for Dr. Aphra to a big group of bounty hunters, and she's standing in that group. And then, yeah, so speaking on her future, Charles Soule mentioned on Twitter that she would be making an appearance somewhere in War of the Bounty Hunters. So we do have to keep an eye out for her there. So she's not quite out of the game yet. Next, Wraith Sienar, Sienar Systems, was believed to design the Imperialis by himself. He also played a role in designing Tarkin's Carrion Spike ship from the Tarkin novel. And he has a history in Legends as well. First appearing in Rogue Planet in 2000. And in Legends, he designed the scimitar for Darth Sidious. Speaking of the scimitar we saw in this series was once Darth Maul's ship in episode 1, and the droid companion 066 seems like a very thinly veiled reference to Order 66. And then lastly, of course, the Sith mask for Darth Momin is a large piece of Soule's Darth Vader series, and it's a big part of the final arc, Fortress Vader. There we go. Those are our Easter eggs.
Good work as always.
Job as always.
Chock full of it. Good job.
All right, so now's the time to rewrite the book, and I'm going to start with Caleb. And the reason I'm going to start there is because I know that you're going to give it continue. I doubt you're going to lower your score, but I'm going to give you the floor to give one last opportunity to pitch to the three of us why our scores should be a little higher. So Caleb, take it away.
Yes, it is still a 10 out for me. I think the reason I rate it so highly is one, I read it as some of the first Star Wars arcs and comics I was reading as I was getting back into the series, but getting back into what the new comic canon was. And it just stood out for how well it was paced. Like if you read the actual cover, each page has it's double page has its own color scheme to it. So the way it's laid out is great. it is a foundation, like it really sets up a lot of things down the line. So it's really solid there. And it just has a really simple like premise. Like in the first 5-6 pages, we know what the story is going to be. It's going to be a ship heist, and it tells that story all the way to the end. So it's not leaving like dangling like, plot threads of like, it's not like sequel baiting you. It tells its story in a complete and condensed little package. Like, everyone comes out here in scarred and has like problems, but we know they will go through with it. And just like the whole story is just a nice little encapsulation of what I think a heist movie would be in Star Wars.
All right, so I'm going to come to Jacob first and ask, did Caleb change your mind in any of that?
So I'm surprised Caleb didn't give it an 11. I mean, wouldn't put it past him. But so no, I start with an 8. I will be generous and go up to an 8.5. I still think the story as a whole is a little bit lacking for me. It's a little, I mean, it is a little straightforward. I think it's nice that I don't feel like there needs to be more. But yeah, the characters between Lobot and Lando and Chaneth Cha, I think are really what carry it for me. So yeah, I'll give it an 8.5. And then also, I do really like the art style for it.
Yeah,
it's a little different. Colors outside colors outside the lines a little bit, and I think it's not quite
it's
Cam
darker.
Kennedy, but yeah. And also like the lines, it's a little bit more like sketch like. It's not like clear, crisp lines always. So I like the style. It's nice to get a little something different every now and again. But yeah, I'll give it an 8.5.
Okay, so you convinced one person. Let's go to Emma next and see what she gives it.
Yeah, so it would feel weird not to increase my score after a roundtable. And I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna increase my score a little bit, albeit, but like Jacob said, the story, it wasn't my favorite, but after our discussion, I think I think I have a greater appreciation for the characters, the background characters, especially. Talking about Sava and Shaneth Cha. Just really interesting stuff with the Sith artifacts and lore and the Imperialis, and of course the Scimitar appearing with the aptly named 066 droid. I don't know, there's just a lot of really enjoyable pieces of lore in here. And while the story might not have been my favorite, I did really enjoy the cast of characters. So I'm going to bump it up to an 8.3.
All right. So I will also bump it up a little bit because for a lot of the reasons that what Emma just said, I think the lasting thing for that this series leaves with me with is I want to see these characters again, and I'd like all of these characters. Well, I mean, not the twins, but the rest of the characters there's enough there that I want to see more of them. And I think that's while the story is kind of smaller and more succinct, and there's not a lot of galaxy changing elements to it, the characters are something that really sticks with me, and I'd like to see them again. So I originally gave it an 8.5. I'm going to bump it up to an 8.75 because the characters are just really, really great. Yeah, it was a fun story to read. And Charles Soule, like we said at the top, he's all right. So, but all right, well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Cosmic Force. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, whether you're watching it here on YouTube live or if you're listening to this whenever and wherever you are in the future. Make sure you subscribe on your podcast platform. So that way you can get it live in your feed, or you can join us every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube to hear us live. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review on iTunes. Give us a like. It definitely helps new listeners find the show. And also be sure to visit utini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. We encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/Discord. And if you'd like to help support the show, you can find us on patreon.com/Utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. Special thank you to Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Carl Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their continued and amazing support. You can tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show to get in those Art of the Week suggestions, or hit us up in our Discord if you're a part of our Discord channel. You can also tweet the host individually. I'm at Ty Rags, Emma is at Irma Jedi 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thanks again to Emma, Caleb, and Jacob for hosting with me tonight. A special thank you to our listeners in the appreciate it. Gives us lots of fun. And for all of you listeners in the future, wherever you are, we thank you very much. Until we see you again next week, may the Force be with you.